Las paredes no hablan, pero saben nuestros nombres.
They found the parts at night. The streets of Chihuahua have a strange silence after dark. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that hums with the memory of things gone horribly wrong. The first toy was dismissed as trash. The second raised eyebrows. By the time the third turned up, a blood-streaked tricycle wheel, the city understood there was a pattern. Every story leaves a trail. Some start long before the first crime scene. Before the silence of this room, there was laughter, somewhere far away. Some memories don't wait for questions. They linger in photographs, in quiet corners, in the light of a room that once held a child.
Las paredes no hablan, pero saben nuestros nombres. En silencio los ecos van. La piedad se borra entre.
Before any of it, he moved through the city like everyone else, unnoticed, ordinary. Neighbors called him helpful, polite, reliable. He belonged, in the smallest ways.
May I help you with that bag?
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
He worked, he tutored, he kept his head down. He tutored children to earn a few extra pesos. The smiles were real. He kept small things with him, small, quiet rituals.
Good. Here, this is for you.
Las paredes callan, pero saben mi nombre. La piedad se desvanece entre sombra y asombro.
Be careful now. Wow, a soldier.
Ordinary, present, unremarkable. Until it wasn't. They thought evil came in shadows. But sometimes, it wears the face you wave to every morning, the one sitting across from you at breakfast. They were finding pieces of a life in the dirt, ordinary toys among the evidence of something that did not belong. The city reeled, but the face of it all would not look like what anyone expected. Andrés Ulysses Castillo Variel, born 1980, Chihuahua City, moved through days like most men did. Quietly, politely, unremarked. He didn't stand out. That was part of his armor. There are things you do as a child that should be forgiven by time, but some injuries do not vanish. They stay as small, stubborn ruins. For Andrés, those ruins began as gifts meant to soothe. Reports and memories fill gaps differently. He was a quiet kid in school. He kept to himself. But fragments from those years point to something worse than silence, to sexual abuse masked by small consolations. Toys, sweets, the bright things adults give to hush a child's cry. He did not become a public figure. He became functional. By his 20s, he drifted to the margins. Small-time drug dealing, a life lived in the half-light of neighborhoods that watch but don't ask. He was not a cartel soldier. He was a local hustler, visible but misread. He was generous in ways his neighbors liked. Free rides, a spare hit for a friend, a couch for someone down on their luck. The favors blurred with control. The favors made them trust him. That trust was the thing he used next. His generosity carried a debt, one the doomed would never live long enough to grasp. The first sign came in 2009 when a man slipped from the map, consumed by a city too numb to notice one more lost soul. A month later, a dog dragged a piece of the truth into daylight. Forensics confirmed what the city had already forgotten. The missing man wasn't missing anymore. His body had been found, just not whole. The case went cold. No leads, no DNA, just another forgotten man in a city built to forget. But for him, it wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. For Andrés, it was proof, a template. He learned to refine the process. He learned how to choose. Young men at the margins, thin, desperate, trusting. Bars, alleys. He offered help, and they followed. He would offer a fix, a ride, a couch. He mixed something into what he sold, a dose strong enough to sedate, not to kill. When they slid into sleep, he moved. The act itself was never the end. As the drugs took hold, he'd watch the life drain from them, timing it like a habit learned too well. Then came the strike. Whatever was near became a weapon. To him, it wasn't chaos, it was precision. Violence was not the finale, it was the opening act. Afterwards, he sexually violated them, sometimes immediately, sometimes after the cleanup. He approached the aftermath with a steadiness that suggested routine. No panic, no hesitation. The same tool every time. A coping saw, its teeth dulled with use. He cut with care, piece by piece, as if following a method only he understood. There was no rush, no noise except the slow scrape of metal. It didn't disturb him. If anything, it seemed to focus him. When it was done, he wrapped what was left. Plastic, tape, order. A wheelbarrow waited by the back door. He moved under cover of night, quiet streets, no headlights. And by dawn, what had been a man was gone, divided, scattered, forgotten. He cleaned, contained, and prepared. A single tool appears repeatedly in every file, a rusty coping saw kept in his bathroom. He worked methodically. The tools and the routine became his signature. He moved what he'd taken to forgotten places, dry riverbeds, empty lots, abandoned courtyards. He worked at night, alone. But he left something behind. A toy, a plastic car, a piece of a tricycle. That small object became the thread investigators would follow. Over years, more scenes surfaced. Always male victims, always brutal, and always a child's artifact left like a signature. There were no fingerprints, no single weapon across files, only carnage and a small repeating clue. The pattern was there, if you looked closely. People shrugged off the little things. The city was loud. Their worries were other things. Then, in 2009, an event would rattle that complacency. A life taken, a body that could not be ignored. The pattern that followed would force the city to look again, and to look harder. In November 2015, 22-year-old Lorenzo arrived in Chihuahua to start a new job. A clean record, a bright future. One ordinary evening out to dinner, and he didn't come home. 2 days later, his legs were found, wrapped in plastic, hidden inside an empty building. Nearby, a small red fire truck lay half buried in the dirt. 3 days later, Lorenzo's torso and head were recovered from a dry ditch. His skull had been smashed. A witness later told police they had seen him at a bar with a man matching Andrés' description. Officers brought the man in. There was suspicion, but no concrete evidence. He cooperated, smiled, and walked free. A month later, another young man, Daniel, disappeared. His remains were found stuffed inside a tire, not far from where Lorenzo had been discovered. This time, a different toy was left. A headless doll. Its arms outstretched, its face blanched and melted by the sun. The press picked up the story. Locals began to panic. Social feeds and gossip braided into fear. In December, the pattern shifted. Andrés moved into the home of a friend, Jesus, telling him he was down on his luck. Jesus took him in, unaware that days before, Andrés had left a body nearby. That night, Fernando came over. Andrés offered him a drink. Within hours, the man who had sat at Jesus' table was dead, drugged and killed in the guest room, just a wall away from where Jesus slept. When Jesus finally lifted the floor, he found Fernando, sealed beneath the boards, his body hidden with concrete. The smell had been more than a rat. Andrés was gone. They moved in quiet, methodical. This time, the house did not hide its secret. 2 days later, he walked into the open. In his pocket, a small packet of meth. It ended the walking, not the story. They set everything out: the tool, the trail, the traces. The work of forensics reduced life to numbers and tags. Blood, DNA, a saw and a wheelbarrow, fragments of a pattern. A neighbor had seen him under moonlight, unloading something heavy. Forensics later found what the earth had tried to keep: the blood of more than one victim. Numbers came easier than faces. 3 confessed, a dozen implied, as if memory itself recoiled. The bodies were buried, but his calm was what stayed buried deeper. What unsettled them wasn't only the facts, it was the voice telling them. Flat, unhurried, as if he were listing errands. He counted them like days gone by. Each sentence, an unmarked grave in his voice.
How many?
Maybe a dozen. Maybe more.
When pressed on the toys, he looked down at his hands. He looked up, like someone checking a list.
They gave me small things when I was a child, so I would be quiet. From what they did when the lights went out.
He dodged the details. Names slipped from memory, dates blurred. Most of the lost, he suggested, were already gone by their own choice. The house he left in 2012 still kept something of him, sealed under concrete, patient and unfinished. Every discovery spoke 2 truths: the act and the ritual that haunted it. Buried beneath dust and concrete, the remnants whispered of a methodical darkness.
They are where no one will look. Buried, tracked. Every piece has its place.
There was no confession of frenzy. There was the slow, surgical voice of someone cataloging facts. One detective could not stay. He left the room. They started to pull the map apart. Rentals, Crawlspaces. Under concrete, the traces followed. Not poetry, but proof. For 6 years, he lived among them, fixing broken fences, mowing old lawns, carrying groceries for the widow down the street. He'd laugh with the shopkeeper, feed strays behind the bakery, and help children cross the road like he'd been born to protect. Some noticed things that didn't sit right: the chemical smell on his clothes, the way he'd drive out at midnight with no headlights, how no one ever saw who he talked to on that old rotary phone. But in that quiet town, people learned long ago it was easier to be kind than curious. The case tore through headlines, louder than the sirens that once chased him. They called him El Cuartizador de Chihuahua, the dismemberer, a name whispered first in panic, then repeated with fascination. Tabloids made him legend, dubbing him El Reaper del Desaro Urbano, after the place where his darkest work was found. Online, his face became a symbol of something people couldn't quite name. Evil, perhaps, or curiosity turned sick. Theories bloomed like weeds: secret networks, cults, ancient rites. But when the noise cleared, the truth was painfully quiet. He'd done it all alone. The courtroom was full, wrapped in a silence that felt like respect or defeat. Faces behind photographs, hands clutching folded grief. In December 2017, he was given 120 years, long enough for the world to forget his name, a sentence long enough to sound like goodbye. He wasn't born a monster. He was shaped in the quiet corners no one watched. Every scream the city ignored built him a little more. Justice finally spoke. In December 2017, 120 years were inked on paper. But time doesn't heal what it can't reach. The streets moved on, the lights stayed on, and somewhere beneath all that noise, the silence kept his shape. He was locked away, far from the city that still kept his ghosts beneath its streets. But silence didn't end the story. Between 2010 and 2014, 5 men vanished the same way, torn apart, left among ruins, toys marking their graves like broken prayers. Reporters kept digging. One found a childhood record, a 10-year-old boy begging for help no one gave. The file drowned in a flood, like his voice. By adolescence, pain had nowhere to go but inward. He carved it on his own skin. Spirals, arrows, words no one could read but him. Doctors called it trauma. Then they sent him home to a family who couldn't afford to understand it. After that, 10 years vanished, and when he finally returned, it was with bodies, not words. In Chihuahua, his name is no longer spoken, just a silence that drifts between cracked streets and half-fallen walls. The house on Calle Desaro Urbano was torn down, but the wind there still creaks like something remembering. Children walking home from San Felipe whisper about the man who smiled too kindly, who helped carry groceries, who disappeared before dawn. No one knows how many. 3, 12, 20. But the why was carved long before the bodies. Each act, a desperate echo of the boy who once begged the world to stop hurting him. And somewhere, maybe near the Urbano lot, maybe down another quiet street, a polite man walks, nodding hello, carrying a bag, smiling the way Andrés once did. The kind of smile you never question until it's too late.